The purpose of Wealth Talk is to educate, inform, and hopefully entertain you on the subject of building your wealth. WealthBuilders recommends you should always take independent financial, tax, or legal advice before making any decisions around your finances.
Welcome to episode 89 of Wealth Talk. My name is Christian Rodwell, the Membership Director for WealthBuilders, and I'm joined today by our founder, Mr. Kevin Whelan. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Chris. Good to be with you again.
Hello. And we are on the third and final little episode or run of episodes centered around young entrepreneurship today, Kevin. And we've got another fantastic young entrepreneur, Liv Conlon. And Liv, in fact, was not only a young entrepreneur, but awarded the UK Young Entrepreneur of the Year award in 2019.
Well, you can't say much more than that, can you, really? And of course, she's got a number of other incredible accolades as well, Chris, hasn't she?
She has, indeed. And she'll be telling her story, of course. But she left school at 16 after being badly bullied, and she built a £1 million brand by the age of 19. And she's also got her first book, Too Big for Your Boots, coming out in a month or so. And that's a guide for young entrepreneurs who are looking to build a business with no startup funds. And we know that a few reasons that hold people back from building wealth, Kevin, is a lack of funds. So it'd be interesting to hear Liv's comments on that.
Well, not just a lack of funds, of course, and I know she's got a very interesting way that she handled that in her specific business. But the other thing, of course, is, come on, how do you create £1 million turnover business at 19? I mean, there's something special about this person, right? So it's doable, So as long as that creativity is there, but of course, I'm sure she'll tell some stories about how she overcame some difficulties on the way.
Yeah. And if, our listeners have been listening to the last couple of episodes as well, just a reminder, of course, we started back talking about the Financial Fairy Tales books with Dan Britton. And then we also had one of our members from the 7 Steps to Wealth program, Neil Moggan, and he talked about, obviously, his role as a teacher and how he's looking to change things within the education system and bringing some education to help children learn about money. And then we had the wonderful Jodie Cook in last week's episode, and Jodie was a real powerhouse. And again, she has written a series of books and all around inspiring young children to think more enterprisingly.
I'm just so overwhelmed by it, in a positive way. It's just great to see that so many people have got a bee in their bonnet, want to change things, don't want to accept the status quo. And actually, Chris, it wasn't too long ago that as soon as someone heard the podcast from Neil, a couple of other teachers reached out to me and said they felt the same way and could they help. So, with the messages getting out there, and I suppose little by little we'll make our own little mark.
Yeah, and the message is getting out there even more thanks to those of our listeners who have left us reviews, Kevin. So as we always like to do, we'll read out a couple before we head on over to our conversation today with Liz. And the first review is from Dee Bailey. And we have great opportunity to meet like-minded people and build your wealth. Easy to follow and logical process that enables you to review your existing finances. And then Ferragatis says, WealthBuilders 7 Steps to Wealth is a fantastic program and great value for money compared to the generic property training we have all experienced. Truly tailored to your wealth dynamics and interests with one-to-one coaching from experienced coaches, as well as masterminds on various topics, webinars, modules and buddy groups. It is a life-changing experience, and I do not say that lightly. I've been a member for almost 2 years, and it's been my best investment in myself by far.
Wow. It's incredible, Chris, that, we're passionate about this sometimes because we're living the program day by day with our coaching, with our insights, with our, intellectual shortcuts that we try and give people to fast track their way to creating wealth and that financial freedom that eludes so many. And sometimes you forget the insights from others because you're embroiled in it. So fantastic, that review, and look forward to seeing how many more lives we can transform. And we're on a mission, 50,000 people to transform their lives, and we're doing it one at a time.
Okay, so let's head on over to today's conversation with UK Young Entrepreneur of the Year, Liv Conlon. Liv, welcome to Wealth Talk today.
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for reaching out to us. I know you are a listener of Wealth Talk, and you were listening throughout lockdown, and it was great to get in touch and obviously find out everything you've been doing, and looking forward to you sharing that with our listeners today.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's funny to be on the other side of the microphone because it's usually me doing the interviews recently. So yeah, it's nice to be interviewed.
So we're currently talking about young entrepreneurship, and we started really looking at financial fairy tales for very young children, Liv, and then working through to kind of teenagers. And of course, you are, hugely successful as a young entrepreneur. You've built up an incredible personal brand yourself and really become the go-to person in the UK now for all matters concerning young entrepreneurship. So would you tell our listeners, Liv, a little bit about some of the steps you've taken to get to that place?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I started my very first business at 13. I am currently 22. So it's been a little bit of a longer journey, although I'm quite young. And really, the first real business that I started was when I was 16 and I left school. I started a home staging business, which is basically where we furnish properties for sale and also if you're renting it out. And really, I think the first step in building a personal brand as a young person was actually having a successful business behind me. Because by the time I was 19, I scaled that business to doing £1 million in turnover each year. So I feel like as a young entrepreneur, it's a little bit more challenging to build a personal brand, especially because obviously you're young, you don't have a massive CV behind you, you don't have a lot of experience in life. But I think once you have a success story, something that you've created and it has been successful, it really helps with your credibility and being able to position yourself as an expert. So I think the first step for me was to become the expert in home staging in the UK, which now we're probably the most successful company in the UK in that line of business. And then I was able to then capitalize on that through my personal brand also.
Now, at WealthBuilders, we talk about the cornerstones really of education, support, connection. So tell us a little bit about each of those. So in terms of building wealth through business, you talked about the home staging there. So how did you go about learning about that? And then who was there to support you? And where were the connections that all helped to make that come together?
Yeah, I mean, I love those 3 different pillars because I think that is just the absolute crux of everything when it comes to business. So when I started my home staging business, there was really no one in the UK that was in a similar sort of business. We were probably right at the start of that industry, the growth of it. So there wasn't many people like me from the UK to look up to. But I always knew that having a mentor or someone that's actually, been there and done it was so important. So I looked for people that were in a similar line, maybe property or young people that had also been successful. I invested a lot in my education. I was buying courses, working with different mentors, just reaching out sometimes and asking for help. And I think that's really what it's all about. And it feeds nicely into connection. One of the things that I've learned in business is that the most successful people are willing to ask for help. And at so many points, I would reach out to someone who'd already walked the path that I want to go down and said, hey, can you help me? But also, here's where I can add value. And I guess that's the real power of connection.
Yeah. And at such a young age, Liv, 16-year-old entering the sort of traditionally middle-aged, male-dominated property industry. Did you get that imposter syndrome? Did you feel like you didn't belong there? And, how did you kind of break through that?
Oh my God, yeah. And I mean, I still have imposter syndrome to this day. Like, I've had dinner with the Prime Minister and I thought it was like a joke when the letter came through the door. I was like, is this a scam? Is somebody trying to do something here? So I still get that imposter syndrome today. But at the time, I mean, I had it massively, especially because I was young. I was a female and I was going into that male-dominated industry. I cut my hair short to look older. And yeah, I think a lot of the time it was probably my issue more than theirs about my age. And I think a lot of the time what we are actually scared of, we project it onto other people. So when I realized that was happening, I just totally changed the way I held myself, built a lot more confidence by having success. So I think it's a lot easier to have more confidence in yourself and to almost quieten that voice that makes you feel like an imposter. by getting the success behind you. And I think it's a cycle that sort of works like that.
So where do you think this all began for you, Liv? Because we're obviously talking about educating children and teenagers around understanding money, understanding, entrepreneurship, being enterprising. Was there something in particular that you can link this all back to, or did you just naturally have this inside you?
I think I've always had like this sort of burning fire in my stomach. I think I've always known that I've been destined to do something big with my life and really change other people's lives. But I think where it started for me was definitely my mum. So she was involved in business. She's always been self-employed for like the past 25 years. So I think seeing her in business, I used to like go away with her all the time, used to be in business meetings with her. And I think just watching her do it, a successful woman who's very independent, especially financially, I thought that's who I want to be when I grow up. But I also took like massive inspiration from reading books. I think I was reading like Think and Grow Rich at like age 12.
Yeah. And within the educational system, did you find the support anywhere that you were looking for at that younger age?
No, there was for me, there was no support. So when I decided to leave school at 16, they actually thought I was going to ruin my life because, I had the grades to go be a lawyer or a doctor. And the teachers, my school wanted me to go to university, and they didn't see entrepreneurship as a path of success.
And another thing that perhaps holds a lot of people back is lack of funds or not having enough money. So talk to us a little bit about this, Liv, because I know that obviously you didn't really have any funding to begin with, and then you built out to £1 million turnover business in a very short space of time.
Yeah, so I think that's usually the thing that holds a lot of people back, thinking that they need that sort of funding to start. So when I started the property stagers, my main focus was how can I do this with literally £10 in my bank account. I had never had a part-time job, so I literally had nothing. So really what I had to do was look for a business model where I could be paid up front, and it would give me a little bit of working capital to then get my next client and the next client. So what I actually done was I would charge a client up front for the service. I would then purchase all the furniture that I needed for their job within that budget. So I couldn't go a penny over it because I didn't have the money. And then on my first job, I made very little. But then by the second time I actually staged a property, I owned all that furniture and I put it into the next person's property. And then their payment was pretty much pure profit. So it was a method that I could then easily repeat and just start to make profit in the business.
So we've talked about lack of funds. We've talked about perhaps lack of support. Any other challenges that you've encountered, Liv, that you think perhaps hold younger, teenagers back from actually taking steps towards building wealth and starting businesses?
Yeah, I would just say it's probably the lack of confidence and maybe the lack of role models as well. I feel like there are a lot of young entrepreneurs out there, and funnily enough, we've been looking for more of them because my book, and I want to feature people, but I noticed there's a real lack of people promoting themselves. And I think it does come down to confidence and then also potentially worrying, I guess, what other people think. Because, there's no limit on what you can achieve by a certain age. And there's no limit that says you cannot earn £1 million in your teenage years. But I feel like maybe it's that lack of seeing someone else doing it that's kind of holding people back. And also that lack of them promoting themselves and saying, hey, look, I've made this money, and it's actually nothing to be ashamed of, making money. I think sometimes it can be seen as a negative by a lot of people. Yeah.
And, you were awarded the UK Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award in 2019, Liv. So, fantastic achievement there. Well done for that. And how did that change things? And obviously now being such a role model for others, what does that involve?
Yeah, so for me, when I won that award, it was totally unexpected. We'd won quite a lot of awards in a short space of time, but obviously that was kind of, the icing on top of the cake to be named the number one in the country. And to be honest, not too much changed for me because I've always had the mindset of, helping other people up, passing down the ladder so that other people can follow in your footsteps. But I take this role quite seriously because I believe that being in business, entrepreneurship can change your life. It's not easy, and I'm always upfront that it's definitely not the easier path, but you can really design a life that's quite incredible further on down the line. So in 2021, my goal is actually to impact 1 million young people's lives positively through business and entrepreneurship.
Wow. And what would be some of the steps that you feel that you'll be able to achieve that? I guess connections would be a big part, right?
Yeah, connections is a massive one. I'm connecting with a lot of bullying charities as well, because I was bullied at school, and it's something I feel really passionate about, is sharing that, how to overcome that and how to deal with it. So we have massive connections through high schools and all of that. But also my book, Too Big for Your Boots, is aimed at young people and how they can actually go from zero to starting a business.
Yeah. Well, perhaps if you don't mind, let's just touch on that aspect there that you said you encountered bullying at school, Liv. Do you think that lit the fire a little bit more inside you? Because we always talk about having a strong why to drive people forward. Was that an element of yours, do you think?
Oh, 100%. I totally believe that, it happened for a reason. And I think there's two different paths you can take. You can either let it sort of define you in a negative way, or you can really let it become one of your driving factors. And I think it's Tony Robbins that says, that life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. So I think it was that shift in looking in the mirror and saying, why is this happening for me? And I used it to drive me forward to prove people that doubted me wrong. And it's been a massive, massive driver for me. And it's not went away. I've been bullied at other points in my career as well, but it's having those tools to know how to deal with it.
Yeah. So WealthBuilders is built around the 7 pillars of wealth, Liv. And obviously we talked about the businesses that you have there, but it's now expanded now because you're now very much helping people with branding as well, personal brand. You've talked about your book there, and you have a podcast as well. So you're now branching out into IP. I know you've got courses as well, and joint ventures we've touched on as well. So building wealth across multiple pillars, diversifying. Any additional thoughts on that and why that's important for people listening, to have income coming from different channels?
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially in these times, we're in the midst of a pandemic, and, my home staging business, it hasn't suffered, but we've had to be able to pivot in that business because it's an in-person business. And for a while we had to close because of lockdown. We couldn't deliver certain items. So actually having, the flexibility to take income from other businesses has been so key to my success in the past, 12 months. And I think, that saying, never put all your eggs in one basket. I do the exact same pretty much in everything in life. I have multiple things happening at once. And I think everybody should look to do that. Obviously focus on one thing for a while until you make it profitable. But then you should really start to look at other things that are coming into play, because years and years down the line, actually, when you have money, you need to look at where you're investing it, and you don't want it just to sit there. So I'd say if you're at the start of your journey, it's not absolute key up front. Make one thing profitable. I'm a big fan of focusing on the one thing. But when you get to that point where you need to diversify, I would look at other options too.
Mm. So in your position, Liv, with the influence that you have, with the accolades that you have at the age of 22, what do you think needs to happen? Can you see any changes happening in education in order to start bringing out some of these lessons at an earlier age, so that, it's not a matter of people like yourself having to go out and just search for mentors, but actually, there is a place within the system where people can start to learn about this and develop that, should they wish to do so?
Yeah, I think it's 100% missing from any sort of curriculum. For me, I'm not a big fan of the school curriculum. I feel like I went to school and I learned so many different things that I can't even remember now because they're not actually adaptable to real life. I feel like the curriculum certainly needs to change in terms of teaching people actually how to get a mortgage and manage their finances and get a job or start a business. So I feel like we're 100% missing out on that opportunity to inspire younger people. But I think it's also about education, and also parents and people of influence definitely putting their children in a position where they can find people like myself that have achieved great success at a young age to show them that it is possible. So I think mentorship from other entrepreneur figures that are young is going to be so vital moving forward. And I think, especially in this day and age, in this current 2021, that people need to be more creative these days. There's not going to be as many jobs when people leave school, and that you're going to have to get creative and start something yourself. So I think it's now more than ever really vital that people think outside the box and, get some inspiration, be inspired, and look at what other people have achieved.
Yeah, great words there, Liv. So if any of our listeners would like to obviously check out your book, Too Big for Your Boots, and listen to your podcast, Thought Leader Chat, where's the best place online for them to go and find out those things?
Yeah, so for Too Big for Your Boots, it's not released until March the 5th, but you can go to toobigforyourboots.co.uk and just connect with me on any of the social platforms and you'll see me promoting it there. And my social handles on all the platforms are at Olivia Conlon.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for being a great guest today, Liv.
Thank you so much.
Well, I think it was clear from listening to Liv there, Kevin, that, success really does begin in the mind. We've said it before. And Liv said herself that successful people are always willing to ask for help. And that made me think about our episode of the 3Ds with the drifters, the DIYers, the dynamos. She's absolutely not a DIYer. She understood from an early age the importance of reaching out. And she also talked about that, passing down the ladder to help others. That's always been, almost part of her DNA.
Well, although the analogy is different, we have one that we use internally, Chris, don't we, which is the bridge. When anybody's crossing from a place where they are now, usually of financial insecurity, meaning if they stopped doing what they were doing to earn money and completely did nothing, it wouldn't be too long before life would be somewhat fraught. And our mission in life is to help people create those streams of recurring income so that if you stop, you've still got assets that are generating income. Anyway, as we recognize that people are on that journey from insecurity to security and then onwards, it's a bridge. And we encourage all of our members, don't we, to almost imagine as they cross the bridge, they've got a hand reached out in front of them, asking and being humble enough to ask for that help, and to reach out a hand behind them to help somebody who's just a little further behind on the same journey. And I think it's a parallel, really. So it's very interesting that on our own, Liv and us have come up with very simple but similar analogies. And, I applaud her for that, because it couldn't have been easy trying to find some help, when you're in your teens.
Absolutely. And as she said, there wasn't really any education around the business that she was interested in setting up. And so she searched and she found a mentor. So again, it's everything we talk about, getting the right education, having the right support, and then those connections, which all combine towards that success.
It was nice that she acknowledged that, although she hadn't heard our language in any detail. Kind of, she resonated immediately with that sort of triumvirate of in our foundation, which is education, support, and connections, are at the very heart of building wealth in the right way, rather than being sidetracked and derailed by events, that are happening at the moment.
Now, of course, she built up her first £1 million turnover business by the age of 19. So, a very wonderful achievement there. And again, similar to Jodie Cook, who was on our last episode, who said that she started with very little funds and she wrote on a piece of paper, the goal of the business was just get clients. It was kind of similar with Liv, where it was all about just taking that first step, just getting started and, then repeat the process and scale it from there. So proof of concept.
Yeah, and I think what's fascinating when people have a lack of funds is if you've got the idea right and you can just get started, you can, as clearly as Liv did, she got the money in, which enabled her to buy the furniture. I mean, the business is really what we would call a property staging and dressing business. People want to sell their properties, and rather than just show pictures of empty rooms, they show pictures with furniture and all the usual accoutrements that make something look irresistible to the eyes, and that's essentially helps in the buying process. And what was fascinating about that, as you think about it, Chris, is the very first clients who then paid for the furniture. Then the fact that she owned the furniture enabled her to use that furniture again and again and again and create that recurring income.
Very much an entrepreneurial mindset there with that. And bullying as well. She talked about that, and that seemed as if that was her catalyst. That was what really propelled her forwards. And she said, you kind of can take two paths. And I think probably all of us have that at some stage in our life, where we've got those two paths in front of us. And, it's obviously making a calculated guess, but one, when it comes to building wealth, that is obviously, shouldn't be a guess, but having the right support again and the right knowledge allows you to make the correct choice.
I think, look, we've all got faced with difficulties, and I wouldn't want anyone to go through bullying, but, the whole process there's a catalyst in everybody, right? We talk about this in WealthBuilders, that there has to be a catalyst that overcomes inertia and gets people on the right path. And I wouldn't want that to be anybody's catalyst. Normally it comes from within. And I encourage everybody to look out for that.
Liv, again, echoed the comments of previous weeks there, in that the education system, obviously, we know it doesn't teach children about entrepreneurship in perhaps the way that, we'd like it to. And it does mean that often it's the parents who do have a role to play there. So we will be working on some material, and we've said previous weeks, if anyone listening right now is interested in collaborating or, somehow contributing and being involved in this with us, then we'd really love to invite them to, to come and reach out. And you can actually register your interest if this is something you'd like to find out more about. So teaching children about money, but also, I guess, the bigger legacy aspect, Kevin. And we can put together a page online. So perhaps wealthbuilders.co.uk/legacy. If you're listening now and you'd like to find out more, then head there and just drop us your name and email address.
Yeah, and tell us if you're interested in contributing, like you've got some ideas, you've got some thoughts, you've got some energy, you want to make a difference in the world and you think, you can help. Or alternatively, you're a forward-thinking parent, you want to help your own kids, you want to be able to get some insights, or you just want to build an incredible legacy and you want to know the best way about doing that. And I think if anybody's been following us for a while, Chris, maybe they picked up that we don't believe legacies about, parents passing and leaving money. Well, that's not one of the, fundamental foundations of our declarations, in the Wealth Builder principles. It's passing on wisdom, and we're going to be creating some workbooks and some real genuine materials to help people create the right processes in order to do that. And while talking about this today, Chris, I just mentioned that one or two of us have got a little frog in the throat, so forgive the quality of of our voices today. We're just a little spluttery for different reasons.
Hard not to be when we're surrounded by this global pandemic still, isn't it, Kevin?
Yeah, so just a little frog in the throat from me, and so sorry about that, but hope it doesn't spoil anybody's enjoyment. No,
well, we appreciate you listening again with us today, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll be back again, same time, same place, next week.
Yeah, and look forward to that one, Chris, and look forward to giving more and more really interesting and inspirational and from time to time entertaining outputs during the remainder of 2021. So until the next time we meet, Chris, see ya.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget that we are constantly updating our resources inside the Wealth Builders membership site to help you create, build and protect your wealth. Head over to wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership right now for free access. That's wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership.